Welcome to another Storyhive On-Location Nanaimo. We're coming to you live from the unceded and ancestral territories of this Nanaimo people. Deep bow, deep love, deep respect to the original caretakers of these lands. My name's Jordan Dack. I am poet, producer, songwriter, and your host in this creative deep dive into the creative process, Creative or Die Conversations. Today is a special day. Special episode, special guests. I'm sitting here with my creative counterpart, the other half of 12 Times Pretty, and someone who I've been creating music with for a very long time, Mr. Daniel Martins, or as I call him, Danny Import. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks, brother. Oh, man.
Good to be here with you.
Thank you for having me, man.
Now, in this Creative or Die Conversation thing that we're up to here, we skip over the resume, okay? We want to dive directly into your creative muscle and see how you tick, how things work inside that brain.
Okay.
Whether or not you're aware of how they work, I'm going to ask you questions and see if we can untangle the knots that is the creative process, okay?
Sounds good.
But in place of letting the audience know all about who you are and what your past is all about, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, no, I don't mean to minimize any past or resume because it is a lengthy one. But I'm going to ask you some questions.
Sure.
And you're going to tell me, okay, we've got a few facts. Now, some of them are true, some of them are not true. Now, I'm going to share them out loud, and you let myself and viewers know whether they're true or they're false. Okay?
Okay.
Ready for this?
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Here we go.
And if you'd like to add a few more words afterwards, feel
Okay.
free. Get some context. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, here we go. Daniel is classically trained through the Royal Conservatory of Music. True or false?
This is true.
Daniel chose the nickname after the nickname being Danny Import. He chose the nickname after a customs mix-up at the U.S. border involving a guitar case and a very confused border agent. And the guitar was never declared, and the story is not fully resolved. True or false?
Oh, that is false. Although I wish that was true.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Do you remember how that name came about at all?
I do, yeah. 12 Times Pretty, we're in the studio, and I'm transferring files from one computer to the studio computer, and I'm sending stuff back and forth throughout our whole entire session. And I'm just like, guys, I just have to import the stuff. And then I think Ron is like, oh, Danny Import. And it's kind of stuck.
You don't really get to choose your nicknames.
You
do
don't. That's the best way.
Sometimes they emerge out of a mix-up with transferring files onto a computer.
Yeah.
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 Okay, next fact. True or false? Daniel Martins immersed himself in the underground hip-hop scene early in his career, producing for local artists and rappers. True or false?
That is true. Yeah.
Is it true that you have spent as much time in the hip-hop world as you have in the cinematic scoring film world?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I've got questions about that.
So do I, because you were also in the same hip-hop circles, and our circles were kind of coexisting
Yes,
throughout.
absolutely.
But we were just, like
Yeah.
ships in the night.
Okay, so everyone knows, born and raised in Calgary?
Yes.
Okay. As was yours truly, the host. We were both born and raised in Calgary. We did not know each other in Calgary.
No, I have heard of you.
And I've heard of you. And we have, we ended up working with some of the same people at some point.
That's true.
Okay, but let me get back to the questions.
Absolutely.
Here. All right. Daniel Martins. He interned at the boutique film and television production house Mainline Media under mentor Brent Hodgins.
This is true.
This is true.
This is true. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Brent, I met Brent because he was managing an artist named Chimera at the time. And I was working on a hip-hop artist, Wakefield Brewster's album. And
Wakefield. Big up to Wakefield.
Shout out Wakefield Brewster. Love you, man. And so we had brought in Chimera to do a feature for one of his songs. And I had to go through Brent, and he had a whole bunch of stuff. He's like, my artist does this, she needs this, she can't have this. And it was a process. I've never been exposed to any of that stuff before.
Right.
So so we brought Chimera in. They did a live performance at the Vicious Circle in Calgary. And then I was getting to know Brent at that time, and he's like, come on by my studio, mainline studio, and, you know, and we'll just hang out. And then I went there, and I'm like, what do you do here? And he's like, I write music for film. I manage bands, and I also write music for film and television.
Okay.
And I'm like, I want this life.
Yeah.
And so he kind of took me under his wing. He's like, just hang out with me for a year or two, and we'll see what happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have questions.
All right.
But we're going to finish up here, okay? Okay, Daniel. Okay, now this one can't be true. It can't be. There's no way. Because I'm hearing hip-hop world, I'm hearing film, but this says Daniel Martins is also the founder of Blackbird School of Music in Cobble Hill and Shawnigan Lake, offering lessons in piano, voice, guitar, bass, production. That can't be true, that you would spread your wings into all these areas. Tell me.
This is true.
This is true.
This is true. Yeah. Yeah. I started Blackbird School of Music, man, like 5 months before the pandemic. And it just shut us down. Yeah. And I was like, what am I gonna do?
I don't know what it is about the pandemic, or maybe it's because it had such a often devastating impact on people's businesses, but it seems like a lot of people started new projects right before the pandemic started.
Right.
What was that like for you?
Oh man, like starting new projects before the pandemic, like
Yeah.
taking on like life-changing.
Well, check this out. So you said 5 months before?
Yeah.
There is no the fact that Blackbird School of Music is still in existence, if you started 5 months before the pandemic,
Yeah.
that goes against all laws of physics and laws of pandemics.
Right.
How are you guys still here?
Dude, I mean, you know, a lot of lucky breaks, a lot of learning along the way. I mean, you know, like, you know, everybody was going through this thing that we've never really gone through before. And it's like, how do we restructure our businesses to make this work?
Yeah.
So, of course, we went to online. And prior to that, I made the huge decision of leaving teaching music. I was working for another music school. And I'm like, I'm going to start my thing. I'm going to leave. You know, and then this happens. Like I was already taking a gamble on exiting something that was kind of bringing in
Mega
stable
risk.
money.
Yeah.
And then the universe is like, here,
Let's just
deal
up
with
the
this.
risk level here.
You know, and we did. And then the same time, there was another music school down the street, and they shut down. And they couldn't open while we were kind of coasting through the online lessons. So what ended up happening was when things did start to open up, we kind of took their students, because there was like many students that were like, we don't have a music school. And so we started absorbing them because that other music school didn't exist. So
what I'm hearing right now is that, yes, in terms of global pandemic, timing was not ideal.
Yeah.
However, in terms of local demand, timing was just right, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
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 And the other thing that I'm hearing is that kids and adults and music, like there is no pandemic in the world that would stop people from creating, right? Like they wanted to create, they needed to create.
That's right.
And so you guys were there to say, hey,
Yeah.
come on over here, let's do that.
Absolutely. We were there. Yeah.
Okay, now I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves just
Okay.
a bit. All right. So we've got, because we jumped to the School of Music because
Right.
that's super interesting. But there's one final fact, and it has to do with the Blackbird School of Music. So Blackbird School of Music was originally going to be named Supercuts. The name was changed after Daniel realized that the original name was already a very successful chain of budget hair salons. True?
I want that to be
probably
true.
true,
Dude, I
right?
want that to be true so bad.
I'm feeling true.
So bad, but it's false. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I named the school Blackbird School of Music after my son, Raven.
Oh, your son is named Raven.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's like, it made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blackbird,
That's
School of
super
Music.
cool.
Yeah,
Now, I personally know that you have two sons.
I do.
So, are you going to name the next school of music you open after your other son, or maybe an album?
I might have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might have to. Both of my kids, powerful bird names, Raven and Phoenix, both of my kids inspire me to do so much stuff. So yeah, I should, to make things fair, I'll need to, or another business that,
Yeah.
for.
Although I got to say, the fact that your business like worked well and came out of the ashes of COVID is very Phoenix-like.
It's very Phoenix-like.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So maybe you've already done.
Maybe it's integrated into the.
Okay, so let's go back.
Let's do it.
Let's do a quick little history just to give the conversation some context. Okay, so Calgary, born and raised.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when was it? Did you have a childhood full of music?
I did. My parents were, they had their own band.
They had their own band.
They had their own band, dude. Yeah. And they would play at community centers in our community, and I would be there, like on a Saturday night, way past my bedtime. And my parents would be rocking out. And my uncle was there too. And it was like a family band. There was 6 of them. They were called the Classics, but with like a 6 at the end.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's very hip-hop.
That's right.
Right.
But the music was far from hip hop.
Yeah.
It's far from hip hop.
What were they playing?
Oh man, this was the 80s. So there was a lot of Men at Work.
Yeah.
A lot of, just some 80s bands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Great.
I grew
All
up.
covers.
All covers.
All covers,
Yeah. They didn't have any originals.
Yeah. Okay. So then, I mean, knowing you probably sat at the piano at some point, hey?
I did.
Was that the first instrument that you sat in front of?
It was, yeah. I came home from school one day. I think I was in grade 1, and there was a piano sitting in the living room. Yeah. And I'm like, "What's this?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh," my dad's like, "This is your piano," and I'm like, I kind of want to play guitar. And it's like, well, no, this piano is really expensive, so you're gonna learn this.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I had someone, trying to introduce music into my life at such an early age.
And did you always love sitting at the piano, or was it a bit of a struggle?
It was a struggle, dude. Yeah, it was a struggle. I probably throughout my childhood, I've gone through about 6 or 7 different music teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't find the right fit. Like it was crazy.
Yeah. And did you finally find the right one, or did you just go through them all and then you stopped taking lessons?
Yes. Yeah. I went through the motions. My last music teacher was pretty cool. And I thought I was going into it learning more classical stuff. And she's like, "We're going to do some pop songs." And I'm like, "What? Pop songs? We can do that in lessons?" She's like, "Oh yeah." And if she didn't say that, I would have given up music completely.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do any more Mozart. We're done. Like I can't do it. I want to be out with my friends outside, not practicing piano in my living room.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's like, "No, you can do other things."
Now there is, as you know, there's a big difference. Both are absolutely honorable and creative in their own way, but there is a big difference between playing someone else's music and then even just taking that first run at creating your own song. Do you remember the first time that you did that?
Yeah, I mean, me and my cousin and my uncle started a band when, we were 12, 13 years old, and we would just play together and we would kind of create songs together, inspired by like alternative rock and, but no keyboards in alternative music. So I had to sing. So I had to front this band. Yeah, dude. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you can play some keyboards, but put on that wind effect, like hold the keys so that, because you can have like the wind or thunder, and nothing musical." They're like,
you were just the ambience, like the hit the wind key.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, I want to play piano,
Like,
and they're like,
been
"Yeah,
in
just
piano
play the
for-
wind sound effects."
Were you in piano for a few years at this point?
Yeah, I was in.
And they're like, just press this key.
Press the key. And so they wanted me to sing, and if I wanted to play keyboards, you had to do the sound effects and not because there was no place in the kind of music we were playing, like metal or hard rock. It just didn't exist.
But you were singing metal and hard rock.
I was singing some hard rock, yeah. Yeah, dude.
How did that feel?
it felt pretty good.
Yeah,
Man.
I
Yeah.
imagine.
It felt really good.
Yeah.
Just to get something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't get this from my research on you, because I did do research on you, even though I've known you for, what has it been? Like over 10 years now?
Yeah.
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 However, I feel like that wasn't the only opportunity that wasn't the only time you were singing. There were were you part of a choir?
Yeah.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was part of the Calgary Boys Choir.
Calgary Boys?
Well, yeah, I think when I was 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does that fit in with the band? You were 12-ish in the band? Like right around the
Yeah,
same
right
time?
around the same time I was doing choir. And I
Yeah.
think that's the reason why my cousin asked
Yeah,
me
I
to
was
sing.
gonna
It's like,
say-
well, you're taking singing lessons with this choir,
Yeah.
but, you know, we don't want any choir singing. You got to, like, do screamo vocals and stuff.
yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
Wind and screamo vocals.
that's it, man. I didn't
Love
sign
it.
up for that.
No, but you stepped up to the plate.
I did,
You were like,
yeah.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
this.
I had to,
Okay, very
yeah.
cool. So how did we go from screamo vocals and wind key to scoring films and stepping into the hip hop world?
Okay. All right. So,
Take me there.
yeah. So when I turned 13, my family were Portuguese.
Yeah.
And so the Portuguese community in Calgary didn't have any, at their church, they didn't have any organ players or keyboard players. They had a choir, but like no background music. And my dad's like, you know what? Because at this time I was quitting the choir. I'm like, I can't do the choir.
Right.
They're like, well, you're going to do something musical. So my dad's like, you and I are going to play at church. And then we showed up to the first rehearsal, and we're like, okay, where's the sheet music? Oh, that doesn't exist. But we have all of these songs, from the old country, and there's no music for them, but we have the words and we have the melody. And so it was up to me and my dad to like figure out chord progressions.
Right.
And so I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing, dude. I was just like, okay, let's try a G. And I had to pretty much follow their voices and like these melodic lead sheets because there was no official music. At least we couldn't get our hands on. Yeah. So a lot of these songs, I spent like my formative years creating musical parts for this Portuguese choir. And I learned so much in the ability to kind of put chords together and what works with melodies and harmonies. And pretty soon I was getting the hang of it.
And were you loving it, or was there a lot of pressure and, hey, I'm doing this because my dad asked me
Yeah,
to?
I mean, there was a little bit of that. But I really enjoyed it because, man, this is a lot better than sitting at home learning classical songs on the piano. Like, this is real world experience, of creating these things. So I felt a responsibility to, for this choir and to preserve this music because they've never heard anything like it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm going to be jumping all over the place.
I love it.
Okay, so
I love
let's
it.
go. But there's a lot of hip hop and pop producers out there right now that I know didn't have the benefit of classical training.
Right.
Do you feel like your classical training, do you feel like it was important to to that moment that you did step into the pop and hip hop world?
I did. Yeah. I didn't at the time though. I'm like, there's no place in my life for classical music. I do not understand it. But as I started listening to pop music and then I started listening to hip hop music in my late teens, I began to see the patterns or hear the patterns in classical music and contemporary music. And I'm like, man, they're just recycling, something from Beethoven, or this song is borrowing heavily from, another classical composer.
Right.
And so I started hearing how everything was just kind of like, it's all the same. Everything's connected.
Started to see the zero and ones in the matrix.
Yeah, dude. And then from the pop to the hip hop, it was the same thing. I'm like, there's a lot of pop elements that are happening in hip hop, but hip hop is just looping certain elements in the pop world.
Right.
So I was connecting the dots at a very early age and just figuring out how all of these things work.
Yeah. Okay, so then, like, I imagine from around that age, teenage years, were you listening to a lot of hip hop music?
I was.
You were. Okay,
Yeah.
so you were a listener at that point.
Yeah.
Were you part of creating hip hop music at that point?
I was. I still, had the rock roots with my cousin. So I was listening to a lot of Guns N' Roses. I was listening to a lot of Bone Thugs and Harmony.
We all were.
We all were, man. You know, I was like a 16-year-old kid just absorbing everything. Like everything was coming in. I'm like, this is amazing. I love the styles of both of these genres. And I asked my parents, I'm like, you know, I had keyboards in my basement and, you know, and multi-track recorders and MIDI, and I could like layer sounds. And so I started taking Guns N' Roses songs like November Rain and recreating them all on my own.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then House of Pain, I'm like, okay, let's recreate these. And then Bone Thugs, and I was recreating almost identical copies of each of these songs. Yeah, dude. And the crazy thing is, on my multi-track MIDI recorder, which allowed me to put layers of different sounds, the battery went. And so I couldn't save anything. So the moment I turned off that machine, everything got reset, and I'd have to go back in there and rebuild November Rain, or rebuild First of the Month, or Jump Around. And I was doing this for months. After school, I would go downstairs and I'd be like, let's rebuild these songs again. And that process over and over and over and over again, I was learning so much, dude. Like so much. I was figuring out how songs were.
Efficient at building those songs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like the first few rounds were just figuring it out, what's going on here.
Yeah.
And then the subsequent rounds, when the battery died and everything deleted, it was about efficiency and working quickly.
That's right. Yeah. I was learning through repetition. Yeah. Over and over again, man. The same songs. And I started, you know, dissecting it. And then it was kind of like what I was doing with the Portuguese choir. I was dissecting things and figuring out how I can put these things together. It was just in a different, you know, with different tools.
It's kind of mind-blowing, to be honest. I've heard or read about that process before, where maybe once or twice where a producer's like, hey, if you want to learn how to produce, listen to your favorite song and try to build it. And is that, like, if you were to offer some advice to a producer coming up, would you suggest that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I didn't have much of a social life when I was a kid. I hardly had any friends.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, so I was in my basement just making music, putting things together over and over again. Yeah.
Because I hear like the part of building it and listening to it in a new way is definitely a essential part of the creative process. And then I hear the battery dying and everything being deleted and getting used to working quickly. That sounds like preparing you for a professional world.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So tell me about when things started to get professional for you. So working with, was it Brett?
Brent.
Brent,
Yeah.
Thank you, Brent. Yeah. What was that? How did the energy of creating with Brent and in that world of film differ from what you were used to before?
Yeah, so when I went to Brent's studio, when he invited me to the studio after the Wakefield and Chimera gig at Fisher Circle, I saw his equipment. I saw, you know, everything. I loved it. The board, the vocal booth. They had a writing room just for composers. They had a live recording room. And I just sat in there and we're drinking tea. And I looked around and I'm like, I want this. I want this. He's like, yeah, it's a pretty good life, but it's a hard life. Yeah. And so I sent him a couple demos of the Wakefield stuff. He's heard my music, and he's like, "Well, I have this project coming up, and take a run at it." And you know, and so I wrote some stuff. I sent it to him. He's like, "Okay, we'll take you in. You can intern. We'll see what happens in a year or two. Maybe we'll pay you."
Sounds about right.
Yeah. But man, I was learning on the fly, and. You know, I wasn't scoring to visuals yet at that point. Yeah. It was basically, he would come in and I'd be in the writing room and he'd say, hey, we need theme music for this show. It's about this person and this is the conflict. What does that sound like? And then he would leave me by myself for 6 to 8 hours. And I would just kind of create, just with this image of what's going on. Wow. And as the months went by and he felt more confident to bring me into more projects, all of a sudden he was bringing in storyboards. And he's like, this isn't filmed yet, but this is what the music's going to look like, and this is what we need for all these different scenes. And then things were really crazy. Reality TV was like starting to pop off, so we would get a lot of those shows. And it was just like all I was doing, dude, was writing and kind of building libraries for these things.
So like you're speaking, and what I'm imagining is you're like in this little storage closet. And they're like, hey, Danny, work on this.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much it.
Pretty much
I was
that,
like, I was becoming the secret weapon,
Yeah.
Underneath. And upstairs at the studio was, the reason why we were getting all of these contracts was because upstairs was the film and television studios.
Oh, okay.
So the producers would come in and like, here, this is our idea, this is what we want. And then they get to the point where like, oh, we need music. Go downstairs and see Brent.
Right.
And then, Brent would give me the
Right, where typically a company might shop that out to a different place. But
Yeah,
they're like,
it's all
"Just go
in-house.
downstairs."
Yeah, it's all in-house.
Nice.
Yeah. So
So-
just being at the right place at the right time when all those things were happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And did you find that the level of expectation and pressure was different when working in the film world versus working in the hip hop or music album world?
Yeah, dude, because, I had other people to answer to. Never in my life. Other than the choir, but at that point I was already like the choir director in a way, kind of compiling music. But at this level, it was like we were meeting with producers and directors. And at one point, when the stuff was really coming in, I told Brent, I'm like, I don't want any of this. I just want to be a creative. And he's like, I will protect you. Go to your room, write the stuff. I will take these meetings. He offered many times to bring me to these meetings. And I'm like, if I talk to these people, it's going to throw off my creativity because I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. I'm going to just like feed off of, what they're telling me, and I'm going to panic and,
How old were you at this point?
I think I was, in my early 20s when this was
Because
all
this
happening.
sounds pretty wise of you at that point, Like,
Yeah.
Sounds like you were already distinguished what would take the love of it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like Brent's pretty solid, hey?
He was pretty good. He, like a mother hen, he just came in and protected me and allowed me to write and create all of my crazy ideas. But then it got to a point, as I got older, I'm like, I kind of need to meet these people. I want to get involved. I want to see how the business is going because I needed to talk to people. I couldn't just be in a windowless room writing music for 8 hours a day and not deal with anybody else. Like it's a lonely profession.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna move my mic for a second because this is good stuff. And, we don't want to lose any of it. Yeah, I think that's good.
So for the kids watching,
Yeah.
if you're getting into music and you're writing for, I know the landscape has changed, in music. It's tough. It's a lonely existence of you spending hours in a room or a bedroom and just writing by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing that art in general is of the heart, because if it was of anything else, no one would do it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like it has got to be one of the hardest gigs going, and it only seems to be getting harder.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you better love it.
You got to love it. And sometimes it doesn't pay, but it will.
Yeah.
Eventually you just stick at it, and just see what happens.
I've been hearing that a lot recently from some of my heroes in the industry. When they, in those really honest moments in interviews, when the interviewer is like, hey, what really made the difference? And they don't talk about, oh, I'm super dope at what I do and all that. But what they say is, I just didn't stop when other people did.
Yeah, man.
And that hits hard,
Yeah, dude.
Because in art, you never know when to give up. You never know when to go,
Yeah.
oh, I better go pursue that fallback, that plan B, that thing. Because artists always, whether they like to speak it out loud or not, they're always like, oh, how long should I do this for?
Yeah.
And it was really something to hear these people go, all my homies, they stopped and I kept going.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
For sure. Because, and I know some information about you, Jordan, you were in the same boat where you had, people were just like, I'm going to go back to my regular jobs, and not you, man. You're like, I got to see this through.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. There's been, probably for all artists who are serious about their work,
For sure.
there's probably multiple moments like that in their life,
Yeah.
where the people around them don't seem to be as serious about it as they are.
Yeah.
And you've got to make a choice whether like, oh,
Yeah.
let's just call this a hobby, or let's double down. And it always feels like doubling down, right?
Yeah.
It always feels like there is something big on the line.
Yeah.
And I'm making a real decision here.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And I think also just as important as getting to that level of success, you need those people around you. You need to be able to have that ability to not follow people when they give up, to just kind of like shed these layers. Because without them, that wouldn't allow you or me to like evolve into the next.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, if what you're about is following what other people are doing around you, then maybe the creative art is not for you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. If you're just in it, you know, because your buddy's doing it, and you know, it's hard, man. You need to have that, you know, that level of passion with anybody that you work
exactly
with.
right. If you're in it because your buddy's into it, well, you won't last.
Totally,
You know,
totally,
like, it just won't happen.
for sure.
Okay, so tell me, what happens next? So you're in the film world. At this point, are you, at the same time, are you working on other creative projects and getting into that hip hop world, or what's happening?
Yeah, so I'm writing the music for a lot of reality shows and whatever's coming through that studio. But at the same time, I'm writing this stuff, and I go and visit the live room, and I see the vocal booth and the board, and you know, because the writing suite is different than, you know, the recording suite. And so I'm just like, man, but I want to work with artists, and I want to do more of that stuff. You know, at that time we did the Wakefield Brewster album, and I was kind of like trying to find other hip hop people that I can kind of work with. So it was a lot of that in between my other job.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, I'm not getting paid, dude.
Yeah.
So I was also working at a factory, you know, outside of all these things that I'm trying to do.
Oh, I just had this, not a flashback because it's not my life, but thinking about the movie 8 Mile. Eminem.
Yeah.
Like, when you were working in the factory, were you thinking about music the whole time?
Yes, man.
Were you hearing music?
Yeah.
Were you like, were the machines, were you like, oh, that's a C sharp?
Yeah, dude. On the night shift, we'd have the stereos blasting, like in our department. Yeah. And then I got to a place in the factory where I was doing like chemical treatment. And so it was just like a desk job with like, you know, vats of chemicals behind me that, you know, I'd have to like monitor pH levels. But I'd listen to my music and I'd maybe jot some notes down. So it was pretty
like
good.
A James Bond villain job.
Yeah. It was pretty good, man. Like I thought, you know, I was just
it gave you some space and time to also get creative.
Yeah. So doing something that I'm getting paid for, but it's the night shift, so you know I can kind of focus on what I needed to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were you working on when you had the chemicals behind you? Was it film score stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in and out of a few bands, doing the film stuff. I think my church days were pretty much done. I wasn't doing that as much. I was doing weddings, you know, just wherever I can kind of do music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happened afterwards? What's next?
Oh man. Okay. So, and then, you know, without getting too personal.
Why would you not do that?
Because it's crazy, dude. I mean, you know, stuff started to take off, and then, you know, I'm like, I got to quit the factory. And so I was already thinking of my plan B. If this music thing doesn't work out, I got to do something. I can't work at this factory my whole life. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to go back to school, and I like to write. So maybe I want to be an author, and I'm going to just do that and get my English degree.
Okay, dude, so I've thought about this before, but I'm thinking about it now. So we've got this producer, you know, trained on the keys, brilliant with taking apart different songs, putting them back together. You've got a brain for that. You've got a spirit for that. Yeah. But at the same time, you're like training yourself to be a lead singer too.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, maybe.
Like vocals, you're a singer. The writing side, like lyrics, writing. Yeah. That's super... Yeah. It's curious and really interesting that you were also building that muscle in yourself. Yeah. Okay? And why I'm bringing it up, and it's maybe I'll turn it into a question in a second, maybe not, is that as you stepped into the pop and hip hop world, part of being a pop and hip hop producer, in my opinion, you can't be a successful pop or hip hop producer without keeping the vocalist in mind at all times.
Right. Right.
You can't just make a crazy piece of music. You've got to make sure that there is space for those vocals.
Yeah.
And that the frequencies that you're using leave space for the frequencies of a human voice and things like that. And so it's really, I'm kind of putting it all together right now, because from the moment that we started working together, I found that you just naturally did that. And maybe, do you think, let's turn it into a question.
Love it.
Do you think that maybe you sort of training yourself to be mindful of voice and words helped you in being such a amazing pop and hip hop producer?
Man, you just came up with that question on the spot.
Well, I'm just curious. Just curious about you, Danny Import. I felt like we gotta know. We gotta know about you. It's Danny Import.
Oh, jeez. Oh, dude. I mean, by the time I went to university for my plan B of like being an author, the industry was already kind of, wearing me out. Like it was
It's a
hard.
wearing out industry.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I'm in university and doing this English degree and kind of stepping back from my work with Brent. And now I'm no longer at the factory, but I'm doing tile setting, just to pay for my way through. Because again, music wasn't like nothing was paying.
No.
There's no money coming in.
It's like, I need some money. Well, I'll just pick up a few music gigs. No one ever says that.
Yeah, for sure. Nobody ever says that.
No.
And so I had it was a nice break from the music part, but then I found while I was in university, I was kind of missing it. And then my partner at the time, we moved to Vancouver Island, and I had like another year and a half or 2 years left of my degree. So I continued it at the University of Victoria. Mm-hmm. While I'm there, I get a call from Brent, and he's like, we have this big film coming in. And, the other composer fell through. We want you to score it. Oh. And I'm like, I'm here now. I'm on the island, But how can I say no to that, dude? Say no. And this is like my first paid gig. So I didn't know how much it was, but it was a lot of money, dude. So I flew back to Calgary, took a little bit of a hiatus from school because I had to make a choice. I'm like, here's this opportunity knocking again. Yeah. Am I going to be this author or continue this life at university, or am I going to like follow some dreams and do the music thing? Yeah. But he assured me, he's like, it's paid. There's a check waiting for you. Just come in and see me, and we'll talk. Yeah. And I think for that film, it was like my first big film, like a documentary, and it was like, here's $10,000. And I'm like, what? Yeah. Like no one's paid me like this. And I'm like, but I have to split it with you, right? He's like, no, this is your cut. And I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah, let's go.
We spent 3 or 4 months, and I was flying back and forth.
No kidding.
A lot. So much that it was my relationship was falling apart.
Right.
So I had that to deal with, and I'm like, but I got to chase the music, so that's what happened.
Are you saying the professional music career, strange relationships?
I might be saying that.
That's very novel.
It's hard, dude. It's hard. Yeah.
I know I'm keep bugging about this mic.
Yeah, dude. That's like you can touch me.
Okay, we're gonna kind of go back to where we were. Let's try that.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see.
Thank you. I'll try not to move as much.
Of this gold here. Okay.
Sometimes, like the French in me, I talk with my hands a lot. Oh yeah. I'm just like, I move the mic.
Yeah, that's all right. No, it's good. I think we've got it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so back and forth, paid gig.
Yeah.
Paid gig is like holy grail. It's like, oh my gosh, here we go.
So I in that moment, I kind of graduated from being the intern to now it's like these are paid projects. Yeah. And now the projects, with each project that was coming in, was even more responsibility, because now I was being paid to do opening themes for these shows, or library music for this series.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, here we go. Yeah. And so all that was happening, and I'm like, I'm going to leave university. And I did. And the moment I did that, Hollywood had a huge writer's strike, and the whole film and television industry shut down.
Oh, no.
Yeah, dude. It shut down. There was no work to be found. Writers were on strike. Nothing was being created.
So perfect timing.
Yeah, as always, man. That seems to be a trend in my life. So again, it was like, how do I adjust? How do I get through this? I still want to do this, man. I'm not going to give up. Now I had the taste of,
you tasted
of the
it.
money.
Yeah.
And the payoff and going to premieres and seeing my work on
There's
the
no
screen.
turning back
There's
after
no
that.
turning back,
No
dude.
chance.
There's no turning back. So I'm like, well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's just double down yet again.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're living on Vancouver Island, Victoria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Back and forth.
Back
Calgary.
and forth.
Yeah. I think at that time I was more in Calgary because that relationship
Okay.
was
Now at that point, I know the money was novel and exciting.
Yeah.
What was it about creating in that industry at that point in time that gave you the juice to keep doing it?
Yeah, just kind of working with other people, and I was starting to collaborate more with the other writers in the studio, which I'd never really done.
Yeah.
So we were sending kind of songs back and forth, or in different rooms, and hey, I'm working on this. Oh, I'm working on that. Let's trade and see. Let's see what's going on.
Yo, let's talk about that for a minute. So, like collaboration.
Yeah.
Up until that point, like you had been part of a band or doing some things with other musicians. Did collaboration come easy for you?
When it started happening, no.
No.
It was tough, man. I'm used to working alone
Yeah.
in the windowless room, in the submarine. I think David Foster said, if you choose this life, you're working in the submarine because you don't see the light of day. And that's what I was doing, dude. And so the only time people would come visit me is if they wanted something. But it's not like, hey, I'm here to help you write. That was a brand new experience for me. I didn't quite know how to do that. The band thing is different. You're learning cover songs, you're kind of writing, and that's a beautiful collaboration. And then when you leave that and you're writing on your own,
Yeah. Has that changed? Like I obviously know you through collaboration.
Yeah.
We obviously brought our very distinct skills to the table. And, I mean, there were a few nights where we'd jump back and forth on the, add a drum and then you add a bass. But that was far and few between.
Yeah.
Normally, we'd have our own offering that we'd bring to the song.
For sure.
How has the experience of collaboration changed for you over time?
It has, and, mostly because of you, dude. Because when we first started getting together, there was something about our chemistry and our writing, and it's like I've never had that with any other artist or co-writer or collaborator.
Yeah.
And like there's something special about this particular individual. Because I think you were looking at things the same way I would look at things or hear music the same way. We were into the same things.
Yeah.
So that when you and I started sending stuff back and forth, because I don't think like when we first started writing together, we weren't in the same room. This was emails of like, here's a song idea. And then you would send me some stuff. I'm like, and I would build on that. And then you would build on what I sent back, and it was just like this beautiful reciprocal relationship that we had.
Absolutely.
And so I've never had that, It's always been like I've been stressed out about it, It's like, oh, I have to work with this writer and it's great. And, I'm not as busy because they can do this part of the work. But I never felt fully comfortable with the other artists that I've had to write with until you came along. And when you did come along, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. But then as we started hanging out, I'm like, oh man, like no, this, we're on the same level here.
Yeah. Well, I remember that, and this is jumping forward in time a bit, but that's okay. I even said at the beginning of this that we wouldn't be talking about the history too much. So here we go.
Here it is.
Let's jump. So time travel.
Time traveling.
And we met, and I remember coming over to your studio, and I still remember the sound of the snow as I stepped crunch, 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 over around the side into the door. And it was totally out of character for me to, really leave my house, let alone like go and, hey, let's work on something with someone I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it was a super cool experience to just dive in. And I think we both were kind of pretending that it wasn't that big a deal to just be like working with a stranger on something.
Yeah.
And thankfully the whole fake it till you make it sort of thing really served us.
Yeah.
because it did feel comfortable, and it felt way more comfortable than I expected it to feel.
Yeah.
And somehow we did know the same people. We did create in similar circles, and then all of a sudden we blinked and we're part of the same band, the same project. Our whole worlds are about this thing that we're up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something. It was really something.
Yeah, man.
And what, I mean, the question that's in my head right now, and maybe it's because we talked about the trials and tribulations of being an artist, but what have you had to sacrifice to be an artist?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, man. Dude. Friends.
Yeah.
Family. I left my family to come move out to the island.
Yeah.
Relationships, just people, just like, again, the whole shedding of people that weren't serving the purpose, that weren't on board with what I was trying to do. I lost a lot of good people on the way, man.
Yeah.
You know, or people telling me like, oh, you need to think of you need to have like a more serious career, you know? And so I've lost a lot of, I've sacrificed a lot. And also, you know, I wasn't making a lot of money. So there could have been years where I could be making money, you know, had I stuck around at the factory and had been stable. But no, man, that stuff followed me around, dude. You know, being like an artist, hustling and not having enough money to like feed the kids, you know, or yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard, dude.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
And I talk about this with artists these days because music and creativity has got to be the greatest blessing, one of the greatest blessings around, you know, right up there with with family, like right up there. And it also feels like a curse sometimes because once you come in contact with creativity, you can't quit it.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
And if you try, because you've tasted that nectar,
Yeah.
you will be miserable if you don't spend time with it.
Yeah.
And that's the curse side of coming in contact with something so essential and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think every creative can speak to that. Like you can say, okay, well, now I'm going to try and do all these other things, you know, be responsible, get back to that, you know, put the tie back on or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, dude.
But it doesn't take long before you realize what you've signed up for is, I mean, it's a strong word, but misery, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So tell me about what creativity has given you.
Oh, man. I think the big thing is a sense of purpose. You know, I feel like, you know, with what it is that you and I do, it's a gift, you know, and to not do what we're put here to do is just kind of like a waste of talent. You hear that all the time. Oh, you're not reaching your full potential, right? I think, you know, just the way like art or a poem or music, just the way it like, if it gives us goosebumps and it makes us feel something, then that creator has done its job, you know, and we've interpreted it as the audience. And since the beginning of time, when, you know, we had this relationship between the performer and the audience, I think it's like in our DNA, man. Like people need this. And if you're not a creator, you're an audience. Yeah. You know, you're absorbing it. And the creators create, the audience, it takes it in. Yeah. I think it serves the purpose of, you know, and it feels good on both ends, whether you're creating and whether somebody's taking it in. And
Yeah, you say goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, what gives you goosebumps when you listen to music? And then I'll ask, anyways, let's stick with that. When you listen to music, what gives you goosebumps?
Oh man, there's so many things. First and foremost, I you know, if I'm listening to other artists, it's the music.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, man, like a good lyric or melody, and I'm saying this because you send me some stuff that gives me chills, and I just like, I feel it. And the moment I feel like the goosebumps, I feel like this is it. There's something so magical here that I need more of it. I need to feel more of it. And you become like, oh man, it's almost like being a drug addict, I guess. You know, you just want more. You don't know why. You just like, I need to feel those feelings even more.
Yeah.
And
like it's an invitation into a depth, but it's like you want to go further. And you want to like yeah. When you get goosebumps from music, can you pinpoint what it is that's happened in the music that's given that to you?
Yeah. And this is, again, I think I compare a lot of, especially the stuff that I'm writing now.
Yeah.
Or the stuff that I'm listening to now, and I compare it to like classical music. And it's like there's certain lifts and changes from the minor chords to a major, and all of these little kind of movements that might not be much in those little increments, but across the whole song or the whole piece. And it shifts, and you're just like being pulled along for this ride. Yeah. But for me, like, man, and I don't know if this is my classical upbringing, but I'm a sucker for like orchestral stuff. Like a really good string part will make me cry.
Yeah.
Like if it gets me to that point, I'm like, it feels so good. Why is this making me feel this way? And everything gets better.
Why do you? Because I don't think you're alone in that.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Like, why do you think strings might have, or one instrument might have that effect over another?
Yeah, man, I don't know, dude. It's just like, maybe there's something so organic about the bow and the dragging across of and the melody and the sound that it makes. It's almost like you can make a string section cry, and you can make a violin cry, dude. You can make a cello feel very mournful, and you're just like, oh, I can relate to that cello sound.
So true. There's mourning. There's longing.
Yeah.
There's crying. You can hear strings cry.
Yeah. You can hear strings cry. Here's a question for you, dude.
Yeah.
What was the last song you had a good cry to?
Oof. Oh man, I don't usually cry.
Heartless.
To music, I don't usually. I cry all the time.
Yeah.
But cry to music.
Yeah, like even like not like you're losing yourself uncontrollably, but you feel enough to like your eyes water. And...
There's two artists that I do cry to, or I feel overwhelming emotion. One is Bon Iver, and it's a specific album. It's my favorite album of all time, and I still am not really sure of its name.
Right. I think I know the one you're talking about.
It's the 40 million.
Yeah.
It's like, where he started to really experiment with vocal processing.
Yeah.
Like that song gets me, digs down deep.
Yeah.
And then this artist, Quadeca.
Yeah.
Who
you introduced me to them.
Yeah. Like Quadeca, when I blast that music and I start painting and my cheeks get damp, that's for sure.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it digs deep. And it's funny because I am definitely a junkie for vocals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I don't need to know what the words are.
No.
Like and it's funny with Leonard Cohen, for example, one of my favorite lyricists of all time and who I was raised on. There was an interview with Leonard Cohen once, and he said, look, I rewrite my lyrics so much that by the time I put the song out, I'm not even sure what I'm writing about anymore.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And you couple that with some things that Mary Oliver said about how just the shape of words have meaning. It's not just the meaning of the word, the shape of them delivers an experience. And so, I love the sound of human voice, and then the shape of it makes me feel things.
I love that, man.
And then sometimes the lyrics are also great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a bonus. That's the icing on the cake.
That's the icing on the cake. Yeah, I mean, that's like the whole thing. It almost feels impossible for all those things to work.
Yeah.
How about you?
That's interesting. Can I go back to Bon Iver for a second?
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question for you. This is great, man, because like when do we get to hang out and kind of
Never.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
is
you're
that
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bon Iver for you, it's interesting, like that one album, when there's so much vocal processing.
I know.
How is that, how and why is that affecting you more than, let's say, like the previous?
Or
for Emma, yeah.
For Emma, yeah.
Yeah, like.
Oh, dude, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. But I can tell you this, so I love vocal processing, as you know.
Yeah.
And there was this time where I was singing through my favorite TC Helicom pedal, Voice Live 3 or whatever it's called. And I remember adjusting the sound, the pitch of my voice. Not the pitch correct, which I love, but this was like actually making my whole voice go higher or lower. And I had the strangest experience where I pitched it down a little bit, and I heard my voice down just a few semitones, and it felt more like me.
Wow.
What is that all about?
Yeah.
And not to say that answers the question, but I realized that just because there's vocal processing involved doesn't mean that it's taken away from being human. It might be accessing something that isn't necessarily easy to access otherwise.
Right.
And
that's interesting.
Yeah, like I haven't really untangled that one because I ask myself the same question. Like, why am I connecting so deeply with when you bring a machine into the mix here?
Yeah. It's interesting too because, humans aren't made to hear our voice being played back to us. That's why our voice sounds different when we hear it on tape.
Totally.
We're not supposed to be able to hear our voice like that. We only hear what our voice sounds like in our head. But hear you with pitching it down. You're able to whoa, you're taking it out of your head voice. And you're hearing what you're singing and delivering in just a different part.
What was that like for you when you go from, for those that are watching, if you haven't heard any of Danny Import's music, go listen right now. But what you'll find when you do is a whole breadth of work. But one thing you'll notice is that Danny loves interesting synthetic electronic sounds,
Yeah.
I mean, you also love to bring organic sounds in as well, but you love the strange synth sound that I can't really think of any source in the natural environment where that might exist.
Yeah.
So what is that for you?
Well, I will tell you where this started from.
Yeah.
It was at the factory. I was coming home from a night shift or whatever, and, I was comfortable listening to rock music and doing all of these things. And then I went to 7-Eleven to grab a Slurpee or something after my night shift. And remember, 7-Eleven used to sell CDs.
Yes.
Okay, so they used to sell CDs, and there was this CD.
Big shiny tunes.
Yeah, dude, everything. So there was this CD that caught my eye, and it had a backwards N on it, and a fire on the background, and 9 Inch Nails. Right. And the album was called Broken. And I'm like, I heard of 9 Inch Nails, but I don't really, I didn't really know anything about them. Yeah. But just based on that cover, I'm like, I'm going to buy this with my Slurpee. And dude, it changed my life. Ooh. Because I did not know that you can use machines to that point to make music and melodies and to have machines make so much emotion. It was crazy, dude. It was a game changer. So then I started analyzing. I'm like, why does this noise, this organized chaos, why does it make me feel all these emotions, man? Yeah. From anger to sadness to happiness. But these are programmed computers and machines.
Yeah.
And that began my obsession with then going back to my home studio and trying to can I do this? And I think from the stuff that that I do now with the synth and the ambient stuff, it's a lot of how can you take a computer and make it sound like it's crying? Ooh, yeah, dude. 9 Inch Nails. Cool. I went down a crazy rabbit hole with now acquiring different 9 Inch Nails albums and just to I'm just why? Yeah. How can you do this? How could this work? Yeah. How does it work? It's because it goes against classical music, dude.
Yeah.
It goes against form and melody and but yet the melody's in there underneath the noise of the machines.
Oh, I had this great conversation the other day with Ruby Singh for another interview. And Ruby is an amazing composer, rapper, poet. Shout out Ruby. Who also goes into the forest and samples the trees and the birds and turns it into music, or it is already music, but also integrates it. And he gave a good reminder that there is no such thing as unnatural,
Okay.
Everything that, even the plastic, that is not so great, that doesn't decompose, but there's no, like, it came from natural sources on the planet.
Yeah.
Even the gasoline that we pump, it came from oil, it came from bones. These are all natural things.
Yeah.
And so bringing your computer into the forest, which is what the conversation was. This isn't bringing something unnatural into a natural environment. It's all natural. And these sounds that we're talking about, and even the processing and the strange sounds, it's impossible for anything to not have a natural source.
Wow. Yeah.
That like really, I don't know, it resolved something for me.
Yeah.
Because I think I have been creating some sort of division between the two. Like,
Yeah.
that there's something innately different between pulling out a guitar around a campfire
Yeah.
and taking out that sub-fatty synth, or no, maybe not, maybe not. And I think that this is evidence for it, is that maybe the deciding factor is the goosebumps and what produces the goosebumps.
Yeah.
Because my theory is that goosebumps come from human experiences, So when you're producing a song, do you find yourself thinking like, oh, how am I going to create goosebumps? Or are you letting yourself go to the process and you are experiencing the goosebumps as you create them? Or tell me about that.
Yeah. I don't, my process, I'm not intentionally trying to make myself feel. It's just like, it's kind of channeling something, and I'm asking, I'm like, make me feel something. And I'm just processing what needs to go through my body to kind of, to get that feeling. It's never the goal. I mean, it's a nice payout, like a payoff, but man, like when it happens, if I'm writing, or a certain chord progression, or, a certain vocal melody kind of hits a certain part, and I'm like, this is great. And then if I change the chord underneath, but it's the same vocal melody, I'm like, oof, I feel it right away, man. And that's, I'm like, there's something super magical there. And then that's when the light starts coming in, and the emotion is just breathing through, because you found your voice in the piece.
How often does the happy mistake play a part in your creative process?
A lot. Yeah, a lot, man. And I still, I still can't explain it to this day. I don't know why. If I'm trying to play a certain note or a chord or hit a certain patch, and I know what I want, but my finger slips, my fingers are sweaty or something happens in that moment, and it's just like, that's weird, but I like it and it works. And then sometimes I'll go back and I'll take it out, I'll mute it, I'll be like, okay, let's just go through, and then I miss it. I'm like, there's something cool and quirky about this, because it makes me feel a certain way. Sometimes it makes me feel like, I don't like this. This feels really uncomfortable. And I'm like, that's another good feeling. It doesn't always have to be sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
If a piece of music I'm writing, or I'm working with an artist, and it's making me feel uncomfortable, whether it's the content of the lyrics, the weird melodies, or the strange, unheard of chord progressions, it's like it's doing something. It's like, this feels right. I can't explain it. I've never really felt these weird feelings, but I'm uncomfortable, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting statement right there.
Yeah.
So you're uncomfortable, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Which there is a difference between being uncomfortable and writing a piece of music that sucks. Because there's a huge difference. I'm like, this is terrible. But, it's not like it's terrible because it's making me feel uncomfortable. Just with our ears, we know, like, this is not very good. But if something is weird and it makes me uncomfortable, it's good, but it makes me feel this way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, how often does it at all, the battle between creating something that might be received well by a large audience, how often does that come into your creative process? Like, are you finding yourself having to think about the wider audience a lot?
Yeah, and I started thinking about the wider audience scoring film and doing TV stuff, because you're now, you're performing for an audience who has the visuals already. Yeah. So, and the producers or the directors, they're very specific. It's like, we're trying to capture this feeling, capture this in the music.
Yeah.
And it's like, so at that point in my life, I really started thinking about, pandering to to the people who are going to, you know, if you're going to see a superhero movie, man, you don't want something that's like mellow and calm. It's like you need intense, orchestral, over-the-top stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you have to like cater to those people that are coming for a very specific reason. And usually the visuals dictate what that's supposed to sound like.
Do you find, like, for me, there's a big difference between producers who are visual producers and those that are strictly auditory. And what I mean by that, and I don't know if I've ever tried to articulate this out loud, is that there are those producers who see something in their mind while they're creating.
Yeah.
Almost as if they are scoring, even when they are producing for hip hop or pop musician.
Yeah.
And then there's those that are just thinking about chord structure and this is where it should go next. And I mean, I already know, but which category would you put yourself in?
Yeah, man. I try and interpret stuff naturally, but I also have that technical side of me because I can experiment with a bunch of sounds and it's not always going to work. There still needs to be theory and structure, even to the messiest of chaotic arrangements. You know, it has to still be organized in a certain way where the consumer can digest. Look at us, the consumer. The consumer can digest the music of the stuff that we're selling.
No. Oh no.
But you have to have that. You have to have something that, you know, that relies on technicality and theory and structure. It can't just be floating unless that's your thing.
Yeah.
There's so much experimental music. Great. The people that, you know, want to listen or want to create that, great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude. I don't even remember the question.
Well, let me add on to it then, because you did answer it.
Okay.
But when I started working with you, it almost in some way, and this is a compliment, though it may not initially come off as one.
I love it already.
In some ways, when you would share some music and with me, with the intention for me to write to it, in some ways it felt like someone had already written to it.
Okay.
And that's because, in my mind, it was because you had so much experience writing for film. You were able to write emotion so well into a piece.
Right.
That it was like, it was there and it was like ghosts already present. And my job, I was going to add flesh and bone to these ghosts. But it was like, oh, the story, I could hear the story.
Oh, I love that.
You know? And I've always chalked it up to your experience in film and TV.
Okay.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to ask you about, you know, when you hear an instrumental or whatever, how do you come up with these stories? I think we're using the same, you know, we're just trusting our feeling. And for whatever reason, whether it's music or when I hear your lyrics or even you're just like, not lyrics, but you're kind of like, you know the melody and you're kind of like, and you're doing the melody. And like I feel that, I hear that, and I don't, you know, like, I don't know what I'm talking about, dude, but you know? Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like we throw out everything and it's just like what you're just playing it based on your emotions and your feelings and how are you connecting to that?
Yeah.
You know, so
And it's
and it takes like I think our chemistry is so good because I can send you an instrumental and you can take the feelings that I'm had and I put it in there and they might not be the same story that I had in my head or the same feelings that you're feeling, but you feel something and you're like, hey, this is what this is about.
Yeah.
And then you send it back to me and it's like, oh, I didn't know that this could be about this. And then that just opens other things and I'm like, this is incredible.
That's so interesting to hear. Because one thing, like for me as a writer, I've written for a very long time, but all my experience and years doing it doesn't mean that I can be so pro that just give me anything and I can write to it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. I spent a lot of years dancing and I love dancing, but if the music doesn't call me, I can't physically do it.
That's interesting.
And same with writing. So luckily, a lot of what you create makes me want to write. So I do. But a lot of the times what I'm writing has got nothing to do with my own personal story. It's like sometimes I wonder who is this about? But it's really the music that I'm just giving words to.
Right.
But it's really interesting to hear that I'll send it back to you and you'll go like, oh, I didn't think that this
Yeah.
song could be about that.
Dude, all the time, man. And I love it. That's, that's a really good thing about collaboration.
Yeah, exactly.
My question for you is, because you also write poetry, and you don't have the luxury of having all that music. So when you're writing poetry, are you tapping into the same places where, with the music, with a different kind of storytelling and emotion to it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, it is a little different. But I'm of the school where it just all comes through.
Yeah.
And whether that's in silence or with music, it's just coming through. And my skill is not in shaping words or figuring out the best way to say it. My skill is how much can I get out of my own way,
Right.
so that I can come through as much as freely as possible.
Yeah, man.
And that's like, for me, becoming a skilled artist is just about getting more efficient at getting out of my own way.
Yeah.
So whether, I could
That's
just
a big,
sit
that's a
here,
big
write.
obstacle.
Yeah, it's a huge obstacle. I mean, that's a lifetime obstacle, maybe multi-lifetime obstacle.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And I think that for a lot of younger artists, creators, poets, musicians, producers, that's a big thing, man. Because if you're always in your head and you can't get out of your way, nothing really comes through. You've closed everything off.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, it doesn't come out properly as it should.
And if you're second guessing and editing as it comes out,
Yeah.
which of course I still do, and
Yeah.
like I used to have this thing framed on my wall just saying the editor must die, and I believe that deeply.
Yeah.
But if you're always editing, nothing new will ever happen, right?
Yeah. That's true.
But because we've been creating for a long time, and we've talked about, hey, why is it that someone's first album might be better than their 8th album or whatever, and or their first book, or the rawness that comes through at the beginning of one's creative career. And I think it's connected to this, is that what level of trust do you have, and how much is in the way. Because I don't think, because we get older doesn't mean that we naturally get things out of the way. A lot of times more stuff gets in the way.
Yeah.
That we have to get out of the way. Expectations. You put out that first album, the second album's already full of expectations.
Yeah.
And now you got to get that out of the way to create something.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I think a lot of artists struggle with that second album. And that's it. There's no third, because how are you going to top yourself again? But those artists that get out of their way and can kind of like see past all of that stuff, I think those are the most successful ones.
Yeah. Okay, so quick little change in direction here. But if you can believe it, we're getting out of time. Actually, we're 14 minutes over our scheduled interview here.
Oh man.
However,
we're gonna have to
I'm not done talking with you. There'll be a round 2, okay? There'll be a second episode. But all the lessons that you have learned through production, through film, through hip hop, through working with the band where you screamo vocals and wind and the boys choir, and how do you bring all this distilled wisdom into Blackbird School of Music?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great question.
It's a big question.
It's a big question. It's a big question. Based on everything that I've gone through and the multiple music teachers that I've had, I can kind of like, when I started Blackbird Music, I'm like, well, what did I really enjoy? What worked and what didn't work? And so I've been just kind of keeping that philosophy as the school gets bigger, even down to the amazing teachers that we hire. They're all creators and writers and performers. They're not just, we have our teaching degree, our PhD in music, and this is what we're doing. No, they have like life experience, man. They are performing and writing songs, and it's like, that's who we need.
That's good.
So that's what we look for teachers. People that can, artists. They're artists before instructors, that can think outside the box, that can, yes, deliver everything that the student needs to learn, but also in a way that the students aren't going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm losing interest.
Yeah.
But when you see your your guitar teacher or your drum teacher at a show is like, that's my teacher. They're putting real world stuff,
That's brilliant.
they're practicing what they preach in a way.
100%. Because typically, when a student comes to learn music, it's not because they're excited about theory. It's because they're excited about, they see themselves on that stage.
They see themselves on that stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what we do. That's been the core of the Blackbird School of Music.
Can you we kind of skipped over the basics of Blackbird School of Music.
Yeah.
Can you just say, area that you guys are located in and what you offer?
Sure. We are in Cobble Hill and Shawnigan Lake. We offer guitar, piano, voice, bass, drums, ukulele, songwriting, and music production. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So then when a student gets to a certain level in their guitar studies, they're like, I want to record and I want to write some stuff. They could just go down the hallway into our studio, and then that becomes another thing.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to find out more about Blackbird School of Music, and if they want to find out more about what you're up to individually as a producer and writer, where do they go?
Check out our website, blackbirdmusicarts.com, to learn about the school and the different programs that we have, that we offer. And if you want to learn more about me, it's danielmartinsmusic.com. And you can kind of, you can do that.
Good. Okay, one final question.
Okay. Let's
I've
go
got
deep.
to choose between two.
Let's go deep, man.
Okay. Usually I go with A, but I'm going to go with B.
Okay.
Okay. What is sacred to you these days?
Man, that's deep, dude.
Yeah.
My kids, very sacred. Actually, a lot of the things that are sacred are very non-musical.
Yeah.
Are things that I've always wanted. I have a fantastic partner who she inspires me and is perfect in all of the ways. And we have like a blended family, dude. And when things are working really well, life is good, man. Life is good. Then it allows me to go create some stuff when everything is, But man, I think, you need to surround yourself, whether it's a family or a partner or a friend relationship. Find the sacredness in that. Surround yourself with good people, and and things will, things will be really good. Everything else will just come into place.
Thank you for sharing.
Dude, I didn't know that when I was younger in the windowless studio, and I'm like, I could just do these things by myself. It's like, no, man, you need people in your corner. You need support systems. You need people that believe in you so that you can believe in yourself.
And it feels like one of those types of lessons that you could never just read about and learn,
Yeah.
You've got to find
You gotta
that
live
out
it.
in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you,
time,
dude.
brother. I appreciate
Oh,
you.
man, I love you, man.
love
Thank
you
for
too.
having me, and this was great.
Let's do another 2 or 3 rounds. Okay.
I would love that, man. Anytime.
All right, my friends. That was another Storyhive on location, Nanaimo. I look forward to connecting with you again. Until then, be wild, be creative, be yourself. Let's see what happens.
Yes, yes.
All right, we're out. Let's get out of here.
All right.